Hey, welcome back. I'm Sean Barn. At Looking Point, we help IT organizations make decisions around collaboration, security, and of course, networking. Today we're talking about warehouse design, all the things that you should be thinking about as you're designing your network for the warehouse. This is going to be a multi-part series. Let's go! All right, we're back and we're talking about warehouse design. So before we get into what we're going to talk about related to warehouse design, let's talk about what qualifies a warehouse. Well, a warehouse could be a place where you store a bunch of pallets and you store a bunch of inventory, and all you do is put it on a forklift, put it in a truck, and ship it out. That could be a warehouse use case. Another one could be a manufacturing facility where you basically take in materials and you assemble something and it comes out the other end complete. It could be a distribution facility where you've got medium-sized products and you got people picking those products out and packaging them up and shipping them out. Those are all use cases for a warehouse. Essentially, it's any building that has just like a big open space. It's not like an office. Those are all the use cases. And in all of those use cases, you need to think about what is the layout? What do I do with power and backup? How do I manage these devices that are out in the warehouse? How do I design the wired network? And how do I design the wireless network? And what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of those in this series. And in the first series, we're just going to talk about the floor plan and what you need to think about. In the second video, we're going to talk about device management and power backup. I kind of drew this beautiful little, I don't even know what I drew. I drew a little circle around it, but you get the idea. These two items right here, we're going to talk about that in the second video. The third video, we are just going to talk about wired network design. And then in the fourth video, we're going to talk about wireless network design. So that's what's in store for us now. So let's move right in to floor plan and what you need to think about there. So I'm going to get rid of a few layers here so I can draw. And then we are going to draw a warehouse. And this is going to be a crude floor plan, but you get the idea where we're going. And let's just say this is 100 feet by 200 feet. And let's say we've got some racks in here. These are for pallets, let's say. And obviously this may not be to scale, but this is more for just getting the idea. And let's say you had a couple of areas where a truck could pull up and you load. You've got an area down here in the bottom to where you're scanning things as they leave the warehouse. And so in these different quadrants, so I'm going to change the color here so we can kind of get an idea. In these different quadrants, like this quadrant here, this may be a Wi-Fi quadrant. And in this quadrant down here, this could be a wired quadrant. And maybe you need a mix of both. Maybe you need some overlapped coverage of Wi-Fi in this bottom area down here. Maybe you need some Wi-Fi coverage there. Maybe you need a drop over here for a time card clock or something of that nature, or maybe a scanning computer, something like that. You may need drops intermittently. And so if your ceiling, so we'll go back to a color here of green, that's close enough. If your ceiling is, let's say, 25 feet, which is very possible in a warehouse, to get a cable down from the ceiling, if you put your racks in the ceiling, to get it down, and then across and down again, you will have 50 feet here, and then whatever your span is, let's say it's 100 feet, that could be 150 feet. And so you just want to think about what's your distance limitation on Cat6, and then also you want to think about what's your limitation on wireless signal. And so when we look at this building design, it's possible that we could get away with a couple of racks, maybe on the end of a rack here, and you could put your networking equipment there. Or you could be concerned, maybe if you're driving forklifts in here, that you're going to hit this stuff, and you don't want it near the floor, and so you want to get it off the ground. So there could be poles in this warehouse that are spread out that you have to design around. So there's a lot of things like that you need to think about. And the first thing when we're doing this design is, where in the floor plan do I stick my equipment? And so, as an example, maybe I would put a rack up here in the ceiling and maybe over here in the ceiling. And then what I would do is look at the dimensions of the building and say, from this rack, where can I get an Ethernet drop and still be fine for range? And what we're talking about here is just how far can I get a cable? It's 300 feet roughly is the max theoretically that you want to try to stretch it. And so you just want to make sure that if I put a rack here, could I get it all the way over here and down the wall? And that would be 25 feet plus the run. We got 200 feet. We're probably okay there. So maybe in this size of a warehouse, you only need one rack and you can put it in the middle of in the space and it's up in the ceiling. And then maybe somewhere else over here you've got your IMPO, but you have your internet, your main switch, and all that stuff in here, and it connects up there to the ceiling. But the idea is you want to think about, where do I need to get drops? Where do I need to get Wi-Fi coverage? If I have to put an AP over in this back corner and I got to stretch a wire back over to the switch, I'm not running into distance limitations. And so in a small warehouse like this, it's very simple, but as you get larger, it may get more and more difficult, and you need to think about what I would call these as IDFs, and I would call this an MDF. You need to be thinking about MDF locations and IDF locations and where I need to get services in the floor plan in my design. And so that's really it. When you're thinking about floor plan design, it's like, where's the equipment going? Is it on the floor, in the ceiling, halfway in between? Is it all back in a corner because you can get there from a distance perspective, getting your cables everywhere? Do I need to think about multiple IDF locations and MDF locations? And that's where I would start. If I was looking at a new warehouse, I would start with the floor plan, look at the distance, look at where equipment is, and where I can put my networking gear so I can make good decisions as I move forward in my network design. So that was part one. We talked about the floor plan. Now in the next video, we're going to talk about power backup and device management. If I said anything in this video that you're like, hey, want to know more about that, make sure you leave a comment. Make sure you like and subscribe so you get all of our content as we release it. We will see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. See you later.